As sure as cherries were made for eating and fish were made to swim in the sea, you were made to listen to this new episode of Film Seizure. And we continue our kind of witchy, kind of witchy, kind of spooky business here for this month of October. I was quoting the song Cherries Were Made for Eating by Go which is heavily featured in the trailer for this movie that we're about to talk about and the movie itself. And that is 1977's Hausu. Yeah, so this comes from director Nobuhiko Obayashi. And this was his first film. He had made privately, he had made 16 millimeter and 8 millimeter films since the late 50s, but he got into advertising. So he was an ad guy, and it kind of shows a little bit because he likes to mix media a lot here.
Well, he's interesting. I listened to him talk about this movie and how he got asked to do it. And it was because he was making short films. But there were more experimental short films. He said that the Japanese film industry in the 60s kind of took a nosedive, and nobody cared about movies anymore. It was all about television, right? And he there was these sort of, the art houses would just show kind of artist artwork and things like that, right? And they invited young artists to show their short films, and that's how he got discovered for commercials. And he said a lot of his contemporaries refused to make commercials, but he was like, well, I'll make commercials. I get to shoot a pretty blue sky, right? And I get a big budget to do it. And there's intrinsic value in that, regardless of whether what I'm making as a whole is nonsense, right?
Right.
But he made the point, which I thought was very astute, is that most directors that come from commercials then and now, a lot of the times, are very what's the word for
milquetoast?
Yeah, milquetoast would be one word, but it's more like I'm thinking the word is not ubiquitous, but it's all the same, right?
Oh yeah, very watered down and very very
And there isn't room for experimentation. They expect them to just make what they do in a commercial and be very very directorial about it and make very straightforward movie. And he was broke the mold with that.
Yeah.
His mixed media was he threw everything in this movie. It's wild. This movie's fucking wild.
Yes, yes it is. And the thing is, I was telling our friend Shannon, it's you need to watch this, I think, because this is imagination explosion.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Just the way that some of the stuff is, because as I described it to him, I said it's kind of barely linear. It is linear, but kind of only barely, and it is just bonkers.
It's like a 10-year-old's fever dream.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's a nightmare. It's a nightmare inside of a haunted house. But
yeah, I mean, you nailed it, Chuck. It's literally his daughter's fears. Put into a movie.
Yeah. All right.
You didn't know that? Yeah, it's exactly what it was. He asked his 10-year-old daughter what she thought was scary or what would make an interesting movie.
I guess that makes sense because I know she had a writing credit on the movie, so that makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah. So the, so this is, and you talk about the thing is about commercials and music videos. I think the reason why a lot of people come from that era, at least back in the 80s, a lot of people came up through music videos was, for one, music videos in the 80s, you could play around with the visuals. You can play around with editing. You can play around with tempo. And to a certain extent, the best people, I mean, and I think it goes beyond just commercials. I think it could also be said about ad work in general, is that you don't have, in the case of this movie, you don't have 88 minutes to tell a story. You either have to tell a story with a single image or tell a story in 30 seconds and get somebody to do something from that, right? That's hard. like, I mean, we, I don't know if I could convince anybody to do something with just a single image in an ad in like in a magazine or newspaper ad. And I don't think I could convince anybody in 30 seconds why they should spend money on something. Really, like effectively, like, you know, just any old person on the street. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I always wanted to get into advertising for that reason, like to make something memorable for people in just like a single shot or a single image, or, you know, like you said, a 30-second to a minute ad. Like that to me is true talent. Not that making a movie is not either, but like we're in an age now where a lot of commercials are like House, right? They're just fucking bonkers for the sake of being bonkers.
Throwing the whole kitchen sink at you.
Yeah.
It's like,
which is kind of crazy.
Yeah, and it's kind of crazy because it's like, it's not good right now. Ads are not good right now.
I mean, some of them are like, and then the ones that are like emulating, it's like any other medium, right?
Yeah.
You have a band like Pearl Jam, which I love. Not everyone loves them, but I love. They came out in the early 90s. And then there was a slew of other acts that tried to be like them. And they, of course, were not good. Some were, but a lot weren't.
Well, it's fascinating because I think, I don't know, I don't want to get too much into what makes a good commercial and what doesn't. Because
you complain about a lot of them.
Yeah, commercials do suck, but they're every now and then they're good one. But I think you hit the nail on the head, Jeff, when you said music videos, because I think a lot of contemporary filmmakers that came from music videos are the ones who have created a style that is their own that they carried over into filmmaking. Well, and especially in the 90s,
Michel Gondry,
I mean, Spike Jonze. I mean, Tarsem Singh. Yeah.
Well, in a way, though, it also kind of shows you how you can adapt somebody else's words, right? Like if you think about like how a music video, especially storytelling music videos, they are hearing the lyrics or they're hearing the music and they're adapting it into a story, right? Well, if you're not writing your own movies and you're directing a script, you're kind of adapting what is on the paper, right? Like oftentimes without input from the screenwriter, like the screenwriter is just not there with you unless you're partnered up with them. So yeah, I mean, that's where definitely that does kind of come across. Cause sometimes when it comes to like advertising or like doing photo shoots or something, you're like, here's the thing you got that you got to take a shot of. And we hired you because you're interesting. And then that's when you're like, that's when you get like, I don't know, Virginia Slims ads with just girls with big hats and long cigarettes.
Homogenous was the word I was looking for.
Homogenous. There it is.
Yes. But yeah, so I mean, we're looking at what, 1977 for this movie, right?
Japan was already crazy by then.
Yeah. Yeah, they were churning out some pretty crazy shit.
And this is a guy who ultimately would go on to mostly make really interesting kinds of movies. Like he made a lot of fantasies, and he made a couple of sci-fi movies, which I'm sure Chuck would hate. And well, one was a time traveling movie. So anyway,
I would definitely hate that.
Yeah. But he also made a lot of like very, very light dramas too. And, mostly featuring like towards the end of his career, he was making war movies. But and to a certain extent, this movie does have an element of the war in it.
It does. Absolutely. He would admit that too. He said he was born in Hiroshima. So he was injecting this with a lot of that trauma. He said, pretty much all of his childhood friends died.
Yeah.
So yeah, there was definitely some element of that put into House. Only other movie I've seen by him is Beijing Watermelon, which I like quite a bit. And it's more of a drama.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's kind of about the Tiananmen Square massacre.
Hmm.
Well, it was filmed during it, I should say.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
now I want to see a movie that is a recreation of the Tiananmen Square, but all the characters are watermelons.
Well, yeah.
Interesting.
I for a second, I thought this was going to be that because
There's a lot of watermelons.
I was
in
like,
this
"Oh my
movie.
god, yeah, the watermelons." And
but then one guy turns
pops
into
up right behind it.
Yeah, and then there's a bunch of bananas too later. Bananas everywhere.
Yeah, what was that? But my bananas.
I don't know, but we'll get to that guy's death.
So weird.
Yeah, so this movie, basically, what's really kind of also interesting about this movie is that this is a relatively large cast. I mean, you have seven girls that you follow.
Mm-hmm.
And what I think is actually kind of interesting is that they each have a unique personality.
Well, it's well, yes, they do, but it's like, what did she even say at the beginning of it? Don't make fun of her. That's her asset. When the one girl calls Fantasy a dreamer, it's like, well, don't make fun of her for that. That's her asset. They all have an asset.
Right. So the de facto leader, or as I put in my notes, as if it's Teen Girl Squad, the pretty one, that's Gorgeous.
Gorgeous, yeah.
Now, Gorgeous, everybody wants to be Gorgeous, but it seems as though Fantasy is her actual friend. Like, that's her best friend. Yeah. The others are just in the group, right? Like, and Fantasy was the imaginative one, the one who first knows that something is wrong later, but nobody believes her.
Nobody believes her, yeah, because she's only making stories up, yeah.
Yep. She has a huge
Chicken Little going on there.
A little bit, and she's got a huge crush on Mr. Togo, who's this goofball who just drives around in a dune buggy.
And Mr. Togo is their teacher.
Yes, well, that's
school.
But that kind of makes sense, though, right? Like there's everybody. There's a lot of stories about crushes that school. I mean,
I don't have an issue. I don't have an issue with the crush. I have an issue with Togo being like, way like too ingratiated into their group.
Right, that is weird.
It's very weird.
I do wonder, is he like a student assistant or something, and not like an actual teacher?
I don't know. He's like 40 years old.
They call him his teacher. I mean, he's their teacher. Fair. And they're gonna go. 6 of them are gonna go spend the summer vacation, which is only two weeks, by the way, in Japan apparly.
They're better than us on a lot of things.
I guess they have that year-long schooling that we eventually adopted. But his sister suddenly got pregnant.
Yeah,
and is closing the inn.
I've got an idea around that. Well, I'll come back around to that story here because I've got an interesting read on this movie. I've seen it like 4 or 5 times.
And wasn't it that they were gonna go to some train? They were gonna be training camp.
It was like a train. Well, that's what Kung Fu kept calling it. Now, Kung Fu is Sporty Spice.
Yeah,
Kung Fu is the
she's
shit.
my favorite.
Oh, she is absolutely my favorite.
Absolute mile. She's my favorite.
Oh my god! Like I like,
and she runs around the whole second half of the movie in her panties, and it's hilarious.
But and at one point she gets attacked by levitating chopped wood. And then just says, I just must be imagining things.
Yeah.
But she fights it off. Yeah, everything, like the might of her fist and her feet it will solve everything for this group.
And it's funny, Obayashi said that she was Kung Fu because Kung Fu was very popular at the time, which, 1977 was very popular.
She even says, somebody says it's like a horror movie, and she's like, that's out of date. It's all about martial arts now.
Right, but it's like, she's Japanese, so it's not karate, it's Kung Fu.
Right.
It's like, well, okay, I guess.
And then you've got Prof, who's the smart one who always has her glasses on. You know she's the smart one because she wears glasses.
Yes, and carries books around.
And
is always the one that answers questions about things.
Yes. You have Melody, who's the musical one.
Yeah.
You have Mac, who is the quote-unquote fat one, although she's the most average of them.
Yeah,
she just likes to eat.
Yeah, I don't think I'd call her chubby.
Yeah, I mean, she just wants to eat. She just likes eating. And you have Sweet.
And I was trying to figure out what Mac came from, and it's because of stomach.
Oh, yeah.
My head went to
Big Mac?
Big Mac, yeah.
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 Yeah. Then you have Sweet, who's bubbly and personable and gets along with everybody. And then there's the added character of Blanche, who's the fluffy white cat that shows up mysteriously and is super important. But Gorgeous is planning to spend the summer so her father is a music composer who's been away in Italy for like the last several weeks working on something, movie or whatever.
Yeah, with Sergio Leone.
Yeah, his music is better than Morricone's.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So he comes home and she expects that they're going to do their usual visit out to like the countryside, like he has a chateau or something out there that they always stay at on vacations. Except this time, she discovers that he has gotten married.
Or is about to get married.
He's engaged. Yeah.
I think he's engaged.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, okay. But she's not necessarily against the concept. She was against the concept of being shut out of this whole planning. Because when he says we're going to have a companion and he says, "Oh, who is he or her?" basically. And he says, "Well, let me introduce you to, who are going to be your new mother." And that's when she flips out. Yeah. And at this point, I believe the curse is on. The moment that she returns to her room and she curses her father by saying that she hates him. At this point, the whole thing is set up and
she says, "I'll bully Dad.
I hate him." And at that point, Mr. Togo's sister got pregnant. I think the whole thing is set into motion at this point.
Okay, I mean, sure. I'll buy anything anyone says about this movie.
Because at this point, Gorgeous wants to go and stay with her auntie. Now, her mother died 8 years ago because her father specifically said, "It's been 8 years. It's time for us to be a family again." And her mother died 8 years ago, but she hasn't seen her auntie in 10 years since her grandma died. There's another clue as to what's going on. Why wouldn't she have
seen her mom's funeral? Yeah, exactly. I thought about that too. Yeah.
And so she decides, well, why don't I just go out and visit my auntie? I haven't seen her in a decade, and then the next day comes, she's all bummed out and she's still kind of trying to figure out what she wants to do for the summer because she doesn't want to go to the normal place with her dad anymore. She hates her dad now. And the girls now get their plans ruined. And also, by the way, I also love that everybody says that Kung Fu is manlier than Mr. Togo.
Oh my God.
I love it. Love it. And she's just like, yeah, probably.
Mr. Togo.
But so she writes to her aunt saying, "Can I come and stay with you?"
Oh, wait, real quick.
Yeah.
When he tells them all that they can't come stay at his aunt's or his sister's inn, he's looking at somebody's picture or something. He says, "Oh, isn't that a pistol and a stamen?"
Oh yeah. Yeah.
It's like, wow, if we were already like going there.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Don't stand so close to any of these people, Mr. Togo.
but I mean, he would be the one who would be completely oblivious to it, right?
Yeah, he is kind of a dope.
He's very much a dope. Yeah.
Yeah. He's one of those guys that, like, in the parlance of our education here in the United States, he's the teacher who is really a football coach, so he has to teach something, so they just give him some bullshit class to teach, because he's kind of an idiot, Anyway, we had a few of those. But anyway,
we all?
Yeah. So so she writes to her aunt and basically says, "By the way, I invited all my friends to come to your place for the summer. Can we come?" And she spends a couple of days like waiting for a response, doesn't get a response until Blanche has shown up. Now, Blanche showed up when she wrote the letter, and then Blanche arrives again when the response is delivered. And her aunt is all about having 7 girls in the house with her. So they decide, like, okay, well, we just got to hitch a ride on the train out to, where is it that it is? I don't remember the name of the little village or whatever. Yeah,
I don't either.
It doesn't matter.
I don't think it really exists. But anyway, or I mean, like, even in the movie, I'm not sure.
We do know that they haven't had visitors in a long time.
Have not had visitors in a long time. So they get on this train, to which Gorgeous is now become obsessed with Blanche. She doesn't want to leave on the train until she finds her cat, which the cat's already on the train. And they make mention that the cat, which somehow is able to open doors, if it can close a door, it's a witch.
Yeah.
And so watch out for that.
So at this moment in the movie, I'm like, okay, so we have the Wizard of Oz. Sorry, I think I froze there a little bit. We have the Wizard of Oz. We have Hansel and Gretel kind of happening. And what's the other one? I wrote another one down. Snow White.
We're about to have a whole lot of Alice in Wonderland.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Alice in Wonderland. Like it really is tapping into a lot of those old school stories.
Yep, the very classic fairy tale.
Yep.
Because
this was something that Ty West said in his commentary on this. He said the whole movie feels very much like it is coming from the perspective of these girls, right? Like they move from thing to thing very rapidly, very quickly. They dismiss one thing and then move on to the next thing. Even the things they're dismissing might be like utterly significant, their attention spans are just too short to care.
Right.
Right. And even when one of them does hang on to it, they're dismissive of, especially fantasy, like throughout the movie, they're very dismissive of what she sees and experiences.
Yeah. And Prof even at one point's like, I have a theory, but it's almost too terrible to tell you. Like, I haven't figured this out, and it's like, she's on to it, but she can't say it because she can't deduce it scientifically.
Yeah, this feels like another one of those movies where there's multiple personalities inside one person. Almost maybe not even multiple personalities, but they're all, like Jason said, they all have an asset, right? Mm-hmm. It's almost like they're the psyche of one person battling with itself over a thing. And we don't have to go too far into that, but it feels like even Cemetery Man a little bit in that sense, where there's these repressed things and things you push down in your memory or whatever.
Yeah.
I buy it.
Well,
I'll totally buy anything.
I kind of buy into that too, because there's one specific thing that happens later with the phone that is very telling of what's going on here.
People know what other people are doing, even though they shouldn't, kind of thing.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. And there are voices all over the place that may mean a lot of different things. And
it seems too like when one goes missing that they all lose a core component of themselves, right?
Well, they all lose the asset of the whole, right?
And they're now, it's not just their friend, it's like they're diminished as a collective.
Yeah. Right. They no longer have any fantasy. They no longer have any fight if Kung Fu's not there or whatever. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And they lose Mac first, right?
Yeah. So I've got that order here. So the first time that they really do the mixed media, by the way, first of all, I love, like, in the early scenes, like when everything is still happy, like when Gorgeous's father comes home, the way that house is shot, it's almost like Gone with the Wind. Where it's like it's this idyllic kind of image, or
it is. It's life. All most of it, all of the exteriors are matte paintings.
Yeah,
with studio structures. Yeah, it all feels very like almost like musical Hollywood, right?
Yeah, it's old Hollywood. It's it's good old fashioned, like, putting on a big grand show, even though this movie didn't cost that much.
And sometimes they'll pan away from that background billboard or what's behind them and show the real exterior, which is cool too. Sorry, Jason, go ahead.
Fine. No, you're good. I mean, on the train ride, they do the I love this scene. This might be one of my favorite scenes. Is the when Gorgeous tells a story about her aunt.
I love how they all can see it, like they're
Yes.
watching it. Yes.
Yes, and I feel like I just saw something like this recently where they could do the same thing, and I cannot remember it. But yes, they're all like watching the movie with her.
Well, and they all make these various comments, all of which are foretell, or they're foreshadowing things. Oh, your aunt looks just like you, Gorgeous.
Mm-hmm.
When she was younger, and it's like more than you know.
And
later.
it's also another clue that they're all part of the same whole, right?
Yeah, it could, absolutely.
If they can see her
They can see
memories,
her
of
memories
her,
or her recollections. Yeah,
Yeah,
Yeah.
because they even comment on how good looking the fiance was that Auntie had. They talk about like
one of them says, "Oh, he's serious."
yes, oh, he's serious. Yeah. But yeah, so the backstory here, and also there's a little bit of animation. There's a little bit of
so much animation.
There's because there's also like little cutouts too, right? Like things are like almost like a collage is being built.
Yeah.
This feels like a movie that Terry Gilliam would love. He probably does.
Oh, I'm sure he does. That's why I said to Shannon, you should probably watch this movie.
Yeah.
But anyway, so, so the story is that Auntie and Gorgeous's mother, who was never named, it's just mom, lived with their grandparents. Now what did they say that the grandfather did?
He was a doctor of some type.
That's right. He was a doctor. He had because that's why there was a skeleton in the
skeleton
house.
with one glass eye.
Oh my god! The skeleton.
That skeleton is my second favorite character.
Yeah, he's dancing around to Melody playing the music.
So
he's
good.
Even represented here on my little shirt.
He's always in the background doing little dances.
Yeah. He was a doctor and he would treat the locals. He died when Gorgeous's mother was very, very young. And so I think Auntie was a little older because she was the one who was engaged to get married to the soldier who got drafted. And the war ended shortly after, but he never returned.
Right. And like 5 years later or something.
She says, 5 years later, happiness returned and her mother was getting married to her father.
And then grandma died.
10 years ago.
Yeah.
Right. But the thing is you also see a little bit of foreshadowing there with Auntie there at the wedding picture with Gorgeous's mother, not looking as happy as she did in the picture that gave Gorgeous the idea to write to her aunt. It's a different look on her face, if I'm not mistaken. As far as that, because she does talk about how her mother and Auntie loved each other very, very much.
Yes.
But it does not appear so when told in the flashback, or at least not.
There's a melancholy there.
Exactly.
And she's holding her cat, Blanche, in the picture, in the wedding photo. Yeah.
Yeah. And so, So Auntie has remained at this house. She used to teach local kids how to play piano, which interests Melody quite a bit. Because Melody knows everything about music, period.
It's her asset.
It's her asset, yeah. I also noticed that pairs of the girls also kind of seem to be close to each other. Like you have Gorgeous and Fantasy, Kung Fu and Sweet, because she laments not being able to protect Sweet, almost like she has to, like she's, that's what her purpose was. And then Prof and Melody seem to also, like, Melody and Prof are at the one point where they're trying to figure out what's going on. They're the two who goes back and forth with one another. But anyway, so when they arrive, first thing they run into is the watermelon man. And those are gigantic watermelons.
Yeah, those are huge.
Those look so tasty. Anyway, obviously Mac found them tasty because she really wanted one, but they're like, no, don't. Just.
But she went back.
Yeah, she went back and got one. Now, she might have stolen it, but she claims she paid for it. I don't know. I don't know. But Auntie, when they get to her place, she's in a wheelchair. And
Oh my God! Real quick
Yeah.
before they see Auntie, before they go in the house, she's the one with the camera, right?
yes.
She she's taking pictures outside the house, and there's this huge owl, like obviously on a string or something, that flies through the shot, and
Yeah.
the other girls are all looking at the house, but she's looking at the camera and she's taking a photo, and she sees that owl go by, and it just stuns her. She just says, "Huh?"
Yeah.
And it kills me so much. It's like the perfect just what the fuck reaction. It's like, yep. That's the movie we're about to watch.
Yeah. We talked about like the settings and everything. The only like pure, entirely outdoor setting is when they're walking from the bus stop to the to Auntie's house, where they like it's that big long, like it's a long ass trek from the like because they cross over a small bridge. And that's like the only time that there's really, truly, entirely outdoor setting. Like almost as if they're leaving the real world behind, you know?
Yeah, I buy that. Oh my God, there's a really weird slapstick
I have a
scene
feeling
too.
you're going to say I buy that a lot.
I will. Everything anybody says is possible. Like probably not
Entirely
just possible,
possible.
but plausible.
Yeah.
The scene where Mr. Togo is, I don't know what he's doing. He's like trying to get ready to go to meet them, and he falls down the stairs. And it's the whole, everything in this movie, the way it's shot is so mixed up, right? It always keeps you off balance. In that scene, he goes off balance and he falls into a mop bucket. So it's stuck to his butt, and then he's at like some sort of taxi stand or somewhere. I don't know where he is. But there's a little kid behind him that with drumsticks beating on the mop bucket that's stuck to his butt, and it kills me so much.
Yeah.
It's just like playing the drums on this guy's
On this guy's mop
on
bucket
Mr.
butt.
Togo's mop bucket butt.
It's a butt kit.
There's a couple funny butt jokes in this movie.
Oh man, well we're about to get to one that involves our first death also. But anyway, so like the other thing that you hear just as the girls walk away from the watermelon stand, the guy says knowing where they're going, because again, he's kind of, we find out later he's not really there.
Yeah.
But he says she will be very happy or something. She'll be very pleased that you're, whatever. So so they get to the house, and as Sweet is taking pictures, you get the glowy eye effect, which causes her to drop, or the camera like floats up.
It like levitates,
because it takes the strap off of her neck and then drops the camera on the floor. And Auntie's like, don't worry about it. And Sweet's like, okay.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, sure. Okay.
Deal.
Okay.
Just my camera.
Yeah, it's just my camera. I mean, that's
Just part of my essence.
Yeah, this is
part of my asset.
It's my only asset.
Yeah.
Well, other than being really nice, but like I like taking pictures. Anyway, so like they go inside, and the place looks like it's not been lived in for a very long time. But the girls are like, we'll cook and clean. It's like, what kind of fucking vacation is this? You guys are doing it wrong. It's like,
and it's like, we all know who will cook. And then,
and Mac's like, that's me.
Oh yeah, I like that she brought in her bag of groceries chocolate, candy, bread, love, and dreams.
Oh,
This is, I swear to God, this is the most Japanese movie ever made.
It's up there. It's
I mean,
up there.
you got Japanese schoolgirls. You've got a haunted house. It does the hair thing at one point when Gorgeous is in the bath. The hair like comes up onto her. Yeah, there's really only two movies I can think of off the top of my head that this movie reminds me of, and it's Takeshi Miike's Happiness of the Karakatis, which is this wacky, like pastoral musical horror film that he made in like 2001, about people who die at this
families in, and then they don't want to get the bad publicity, so they start hiding all the bodies, right? And it turns out there's murder on the loose. And it's so wacky, and it has a lot of this weird mixed media animation like built into it, and stop motion and claymation. It's wild. And then The Boxer's Omen. You've seen The Boxer's Omen? I think we might have talked about The Boxer's Omen briefly when we did our Big Trouble in Little China episode, because it's got a very similar aesthetic. It's pretty clear that Carpenter drew from that. But
there's also there's a little bit also of the Yokai Monster series too.
I'm not familiar with that.
Yeah, I would recommend that because those are bonkers. I mean, like because it's all like laced in with like various like actual like folklore and stuff like that, where it's like, yeah, there is a monster that looks like a parasol. Yeah, okay. And it jumps around on its one leg. It's they're wonderful though. The monsters are like so cool. But anyway, so eventually Mac produces the watermelon she wanted. And they're like, "Did you steal that?" And she's like, "No, I paid for it." And she's like, "I want to eat it, but it needs to be cold." And Auntie says, "Take it out to the well. The water in there will chill it very well. Like, just put it in there for a little while and it'll be fine. It'll be great." And she's like, "Okay." So she ties it up and she drops it into the well. Now, as we know, every well in Japan is haunted by a monster lady. So I would have said, "Can we just use the refrigerator?" But apparently that's also a portal to someplace else in the house. So never mind. Actually, I don't know what I'm talking about. Oh, I'm talking about house.
She's got like Meow Wolf built into that house, man. I swear. Somebody just needs to recreate this house at Meow Wolf, and boom, we got it.
So so like later on, like they started cleaning up the house and everything. So they were going to go and it's like, "Hey, Mac, go get the watermelon." And so she goes out to get the watermelon and she does not return. And eventually Fantasy decides, "I'm going to go look for her." In fact, I think Auntie tells her to go look for her, almost as if to kind of say, "Look what's about to happen. You're not going to be the one who anybody will believe when things are going down."
Auntie fucks with Fantasy hard in this movie. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, I mean, I do think when she's like walking around, like, by the way, she begins walking at some point and then she like dances her way into the refrigerator. That's kind of spooky, man. And Fantasy is the only one who sees it.
Yep. Oh, and she makes sure she sees it.
Right? Yep.
Yeah. It's great.
So when
she's like, she does it with a flourish.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It's so when Fantasy goes out to the well, she pulls up the rope, and what she retrieves is Mac's head, who then tries to bite her butt.
Bite her butt. There's our second butt joke. Yes.
Butt joke. So yeah, she's been decapitated, and her cap has been detated down the well.
Yep.
She's the first one to die. Now, in the death order, I have an asterisk and italics for the second one, because I think Jason's going to buy this. A little bit later,
Yes.
Gorgeous goes to like take the bath, and then she like finds her auntie's things, and she's like combing her hair. She's looking in her mirror, and things go goofy for her, and she ends up breaking apart. At this point, I think Gorgeous is actually the second death. She's death by way of possession. She's Gorgeous is no longer gorgeous anymore.
That's what I thought too. It seems pretty clear from that point on. She's in the bridal dress, right? Like she's dressed as her aunt, on her bridal day. Yeah.
Auntie has taken her place.
Which another cool like moment. I mean, it's like the animated like take. I don't know. It almost reminds me of like a pre-CGI effect that they would have done in Total Recall or something, right?
Yeah.
where her face just kind of flakes off,
It
and
breaks
behind
like
it,
a mirror.
Yeah,
right? So
like
yeah,
a mirror.
breaks like, and then there's flames behind it, and then her whole body is on fire.
Which
yeah.
technically the flame thing happens later too. So it's
Yep.
a couple of people die by flame, but yes. But I think Gorgeous is dead by possession now because she goes missing for a chunk of this movie. Like ostensibly, Gorgeous is the protagonist because she moves the plot in various ways along, but she's not really the star of the movie. She's both the protagonist and the antagonist.
She is.
She's the
I would say-
protagonist of the plot, but the antagonist of the characters.
And I would say if there's like one central person you're rooting for, it's kind of probably fantasy.
Fantasy, yeah, and kung fu.
Yeah,
I'm just rooting for Kung Fu because she's a badass.
Yeah, I mean, gosh, she's funny. But yeah, fantasy is also, you kind of get behind her because she's the one who you see what she sees, but no one else believes her. So,
Well, and she's driven crazy in this movie too.
because she
By
starts
the
to doubt
end,
herself. Whoa.
yeah, because at the end, by the way, when I get to her place in the death order, I just have 3 question marks. I don't know exactly what happened to her, but she's insane by that. Like she's broken. So, but yeah, so now the girls are starting to figure out, it's like, okay, well, what happened to Gorgeous? Mac has got to be somewhere. You didn't pull up her head, and her head didn't bite you on the butt. Fantasy, stop telling tall tales. And this is when you start seeing Auntie start to act particularly weird. She's longer.
She's got Mac's eyeball in her mouth, and
got
it's showing it to fantasy. Like that's got a little bit of shades of like Dead Alive, right?
Yeah.
Like that's a little Peter Jackson pickup. I think he was like, oh yeah, I mean, definitely he's seen this movie.
Oh, for sure. So she's got the eyeball. She's teasing her with it. And then later, that's when you see her getting up and walking around and like dancing. So like she's being revitalized by taking these, by eating Mac essentially.
And you're right, and that all happens before
Gorgeous has her back.
Gorgeous, yeah,
Because
you don't see Auntie again
after she goes into the refrigerator, she's
Right.
never seen again.
You see her up. You see her up.
Oh
in,
yeah,
like,
you see her. Oh god,
in
yeah,
the
when she's
rafters or
crawling
whatever.
across-
Yeah,
Ugh.
yeah. The
Yeah.
Japanese and they're like crawly,
And their
crawly
hair and their
women,
crawling.
hairy, crawly women. Oh my god, there's a really good like hair gag in this. That's creepy. Yeah, in the hot tub. Oof.
Yeah, that's near the end of Gorgeous's time in this movie, or at least as she was. She becomes something new.
Yep.
And, and that's why I go back to saying it's like from the moment that she essentially curses her father, she's cursed herself and her friends and opened the door for Auntie to kind of take what she wanted from
And
her.
around this time
from her
too, there's
friends.
a weird moment with the cat, like walking across the piano keys, walking forward and backward,
Yeah.
and the damn skeletons behind there dancing.
Yeah.
It's basically just full on fucking insanity from here on out.
Yeah. It's like a kiddie haunted house.
Yeah.
Like it's like what the Children's Museum puts together for Halloween,
Yep.
and I love it. Chuck, had you seen this movie before?
Many years ago. I think I watched it after I watched The American House.
Okay.
And I don't even know if they're related. If the House one is a remake of, like, I
No.
know it's not the same movie.
Not even nothing to do with
I
each
think,
other.
I don't know if, I think maybe Ian owned it. That's a friend of ours from our,
Ian
years
would
ago.
make a whole lot of sense. Yeah.
yeah. So I've seen it, but it'd been a long time. So most of it like surprised me while I was watching it. Yeah.
Well, I think honestly, I mean, I've seen it 4 or 5 times myself, and it's like each time kind of surprises me with something different too. Like, because I covered this some 4 or 5 years ago on Monster Mondays, and even now I don't think I even have the same takes or the same anything that I did even then. Right?
It's just easy to watch.
It is.
It is, and it's fun to kind of just let it wash over you. There's so much to look at. the all the different in-camera effects and how they do them. You know, you can just kind of go down that rabbit hole if you want and be like, oh wow, that was really good for 1977.
Well, it does all the things, right? Like everything you could think of, it
Everything you
does.
think of. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
I mean, the only thing that's missing is anything computer related because it just wasn't there. You know,
Yeah.
everything else is there.
So I like this. This is a little anecdote I picked up from the Obayashi interview, his daughter on the Criterion disc. The scene where which one is it that gets attacked by the pillows and the futons?
That's the next death. That's Sweet.
That's the next death. All right. Well, we're right there then.
Yeah.
Perfect.
So
This was conceived by Obayashi's daughter because when she went to stay with her grandfather, she would have to sleep on a futon, and she would always have to get the futon out of the closet by herself. And the futon mattresses are really heavy, and it always scary, and it would like fall on her, and it would creep her out that the mattress was falling on her, and so that's where she said, what if it was like, 20 mattresses? and there's a little sketch in Obayashi's sketchbook of like all the different kills, and it's this futon with this scary face on it. It's so cute.
That's hilarious.
So so like basically in this scene now, Sweet gets like, she's going into a room. Either I don't remember exactly why she's going into this room, but it's like a storage room, and then she gets kind of,
well, it's probably time to go to bed, and they have to get the futons out.
or they need the sheets or whatever it is,
because they got to get the mattresses out of the closet.
Yeah, and why are all the mattresses here? It's probably because of it being a doctor's office at one point. It probably had beds in it. You buy that, Jason?
Yeah.
You buy them? Yeah,
that seems very plausible. Yes.
So and like basically she sees this doll in the room, and because she's sweet, she's attracted to the doll. She's like, oh, look at this doll, oh cool. But it's possessed too, because everything in the house is possessed. Everything, it's all possessed, and it basically doesn't really entrance her, but it kind of like it causes everything to kind of start to happen, and she's kind of frozen by it, or frozen in fear. And so all of these mattresses, all these pillows, all these blankets, everything starts falling onto her. And essentially, we think that it just kind of ate her and spit back out her clothing. Because when the girls go to try to find her, they find her clothing, and one of the girls asks, like, what was she doing, stripping in here?
Yeah, it's hilarious. Like, well, here's her bra, and then there was like, here's her panties, and then somebody's like, it smells, and she smells the underwear.
Oh, yeah.
Like, they do smell.
And also the doll has been stripped too.
Yes. Maybe she was sucked into the doll.
That's what I assumed they all turned into dolls or something, like when they were killed. But
where they actually went was in that place in Yellow Submarine where it's like the Sea of Holes. That's where they really kind of end up, as we'll see later in the movie, because there's like just this floating void that they end up at. But we do see Sweet later. She has been transported someplace, which actually technically she hasn't died yet. I mean, she has been transported, but she hasn't technically died yet.
Yeah. She might have, her spirit might still be in tune with the living world.
Well, I don't know. That clock fills up with blood when the gears start turning.
That's true. That's probably the end. That's probably the end right there.
Yeah.
There's another gag right around this point that made me laugh. It's the I think it's Prof, but there's somebody who's like got their hand outside of the closet, and they're motioning with their hand.
It's a Melody.
It's Melody.
Melody. And
yeah, because Melody gets bitten by the piano. And she's been playing the piano.
I think this is before that, though, isn't it?
No, it's because she screams, and so some of them run away from that storage room, realize she's just got a little bit of a cut, and then they go back to the storage room, and then she screams louder, and they're like, "God, Melody, it's just a cut." But then, yeah, she's in this little closet.
And it's spooking him out because it's like, who the hell? Who's in there? Like, whose arm is that? And then She opens the door. She's like, toilet paper, please.
Yeah, she's in the water closet. Yeah. Yeah,
That's
so
funny.
it's like it's a false alarm there as far as like scare. I mean, she is the next death anyway. Because
That killer
Hers is
piano scene's
wild.
pretty wild.
Yeah.
It's pretty wild.
yeah, it is because
It all kind of happens at the same time because you have the killer piano scene happening, and then you have the clock dripping blood happening. It's all happening like concurrently. Yeah.
right. Yeah, because so so this is when Prof and so like at one point in time, Prof Melody and Kung Fu are trying to figure out like what exactly is going on here, and Fantasy is freaking out, and this is when like this is at this point when Prof is like, it's what I have in mind. I can't really say, like it is. I don't think I should say it. And so at one point, because Fantasy is so upset, I think it's Kung Fu who tells Melody to play some music to calm her down and lighten the mood.
This is lighting the mood for everyone. Yeah.
Right. Because friends are gone missing. Because at this point, they can't find Gorgeous anymore either.
Right.
Because Gorgeous has gotten all dolled up in the wedding dress, in the wedding gown, and gone outside where she's juggling balls of light.
Yeah. Yeah. I think she said she was going to go look for Mac maybe or something, and she never comes back.
Well, she does come shortly after she's possessed. She is walking around, and that's when she picks up the phone, and you hear the people screaming.
Yeah.
And it's the girl screaming. So it's like now you're kind of in a weird time screw up now because she hears the girl screaming as she picks up the phone and she says, it's out of order. It's like, to which later, one of the girls, it's either Prof or Sweet, or Prof or
Kung Fu says she's lying, I think.
yeah, Kung Fu says she's lying because she starts to realize nothing's right here. Nothing's right here, and I'm going to start kicking and punching things. And either Prof or Fantasy says, but Gorgeous said that, you know, the phone wasn't working, so why would she lie? But anyway, so yeah, so at this point in time, Gorgeous has left the house and is like in that kind of smoky backyard where she's juggling the balls of light, and she's very clearly possessed by Auntie because, you know, you're even seeing Auntie's, like it's like there's quick cuts that kind of tell you what's going on. But anyway, so yeah, so Melody starts playing the piano for Fantasy while Prof and Kung Fu go looking for Gorgeous. And as if Fantasy's already had enough tonight, the piano just bites off Melody's fingers, to which she looks at her hands. She's like, my fingers are gone.
And then it takes off the rest of her hand on one of her arms.
Yeah. And it tosses
it
tosses one of her hands into the fishbowl.
Mm-hmm. The best part of this is the severed fingers. The severed fingers playing the piano.
Yeah.
God, that's so good. That's like something you'd see in a Haunted Mansion at Disney or something, or
totally.
in a Sam Raimi.
Oh,
Evil Dead movie.
Very Sam Raimi business going on here.
Yeah.
Yeah, because she's also like kind of overcome with like wonder at like what's going on here. And then the the piano starts gobbling her up, at which point her legs are sticking out of the piano and she's like, oh, that's naughty. Because when she looks to see that her own legs are sticking out of the piano and that, you know, anybody else can basically look up her dress, she's like, oh, that's naughty. But then, yeah, she's basically chomped up and eaten up by the grand piano, which Auntie specifically pointed out that there was a grand piano in the other room for her to check out, as if she knows that grand piano need fed.
There's a weird moment right now with Mr. Togo, but it's not Mr. Togo. It's like It's somebody that Mr. Togo knows. I don't know, but it's the ramen noodle scene.
Yeah,
I think he's there. He's there too.
yeah, he is there too. But he is there with somebody, or at least talking to somebody.
Yeah, but it's in a different location. But the
Right.
locations merge, and it breaks like the third and a half wall. I don't know, like because the girls in the house see him. He startles them, but then the scene cuts to that location. It's completely bonkers.
Well, I think fantasy. So someone says Mr. Togo's not going to come, and she's like, he promised, and I think it's her projecting, not
Maybe.
necessarily they startled them.
just think
She's thinking about him.
I think it's as an incredibly creative way to cut away from the action to another location, right?
Yeah.
To have the locations blur. Yeah, it's wild.
Yeah. Well,
Because it's almost like you see that guy's face come in with the noodles. It's like all of a sudden there's this old man eating noodles in the
Yes.
house, and then the house fades away and the exterior location fades in.
well,
Yeah.
because there's also a bear in a chef's outfit.
Fucking weird.
Because I thought at first that bear moved. I'm like, wait, what? It's like, no, it's like, I think it's just settling back against the wall or something, and it pans over to the actual cook.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Oh my God. Yes. So you might be wondering why it keeps going back to Mr. Togo. It's because it's false hope.
Yeah.
You think he's going to come and save everybody, but
Yeah.
don't forget, he's a moron.
Yeah.
He's worthless. In fact, on tvtropes.com, if you look up House, they talk about how useless the adults are, how the children are fucked by their uselessness.
And it gets turned
He
in,
got
and
a
it gets
bucket
turned into
stuck to
monkey
his
food.
ass and had to go to the fucking hospital.
We talked about that. Yeah. So
Yeah. Oh yeah. Little kids playing drums on his bucket ass.
Yeah.
I called it his bucket
His butt kid.
butt kit.
But
Anyway, so
Huge
yeah,
lips. Huge lips. Huge lips. That's what's next.
Oh, well, talk about.
I just love it because this is when I think Sweet appears to them and starts telling them that she's stuck in the. No, that already happened.
That
I don't know
already
where the
that
huge
happened
lips-
at the
where-
same time
who
Melody
the
was
fuck's,
getting.
Who the
eaten.
fuck's were the huge lips?
Oh,
the huge lips
no,
are
it's
weird.
gorgeous. Gorgeous then
Oh, yeah.
explains what's going on.
And she gives them the diary. Yeah,
yeah,
but she
So-
appears as two big red lips because she made a big point about putting her lipstick on
lipstick
earlier.
on.
Yeah,
They even call out like, oh, she must be wearing something like a very specific lipstick. And
I just think it's funny that one of the girls
huge lips.
says out loud, "Huge lips."
yeah,
yeah.
because bits and pieces of Gorgeous's face is appearing and telling the story. And what had happened was Auntie died many, many years ago. So that's why she hasn't seen her for 10 years. And that her sorrow has infected the house in a way that the house will devour unmarried women. And that's why Auntie wanted all 7 of them, because the house was hungry.
And Auntie is dead, but her body is still alive.
Her body, because they say, well, wait, we saw you, as if ghosts don't exist. And they're like, oh, yeah, that's when she says, well, her soul, she died, but her body remained to lure the people into the house for feeding.
Yeah.
And now her spirit has taken.
It's just an interesting.
Gorgeous.
It's an interesting switch on the ghost story.
Yeah,
Usually
she's physically there.
It's the corporeal body that dies, and it's the spirit that haunts. But in this, it's reversed.
Yeah. It's very Japanese.
Yeah,
Yeah, because she's almost like a demon, right? Like she is.
yeah.
I
He's
mean,
already eaten the town of all its little girls,
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
like all of them. So that's
Yeah.
which is she invites the other 7 to come.
Yes.
Because there's none left.
Yeah, absolutely correct with that Hansel and Gretel. A little bit of last week too.
Yeah.
A little bit.
Yeah.
Well, as I messaged you guys, it's like we could have covered this right after 80s fantasy for kids, because really this movie isn't really for adults, like necessarily. Like, yes, there is some nudity, but like,
This is pretty graphic for a kids movie. It's biting off hands and there's heads
but it is
floating.
kind of, I mean, but it is
It's
kind of
teenager.
done in a way.
This is like
Yeah.
teenager, for sure teenager, I think. Not little kids. Probably not for 10-year-olds like his,
No, but
his
like-
daughter, but it's kind of
But
ironically
13
funny that way.
13 and up, you know, it's like because like the
But I don't
gore
know, man,
in it is
the-
kind of silly
the
at the same time
Japanese-
too.
The Japanese are accustomed to a lot.
A lot
We're
worse
accustomed
than
to a
we
lot
are.
of real life violence and at a large scale. Like this kind of movie was probably taken very lightly, even by children.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I don't know.
I don't know.
Anyway, we should ask Joe Bob to ask Yuki. Did he watch this movie?
I mean, it was written by co-written by a 10-year-old. So
Right.
Right. Anyway, but no, I don't know. I mean, I could see I could see this very, very much appealing to the actual schoolgirls watching, you know, like having a sleepover. They watch this movie. They laugh, they scare, they, you know, have a good time. And then, you know,
I
whatever.
wonder, it was 1977. I wonder if it did become like a sleepover movie, you know, 6-7 years later.
Yeah, it was not a hit upon release, but it then became a cult classic. So I'm sure it did. Like,
Yeah.
you know, like you were renting Nightmare on Elm Street, you know, at 13 for sleepovers or whatever.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah, totally. It's
So
it's a very, it has Midnight Movie also like all over it, you know.
oh yeah, I'd go see this if somebody would play it right now.
I think Can has shown it before. They might show it again.
I'd like to see it like in October at midnight somewhere. You know,
Yeah, it would be fun. That'd be
Yeah.
fun.
But anyway, yeah. So at this point, they've learned that gorgeous, because I think Kung Fu even says that gorgeous is not gorgeous anymore. It's like, that's not the gorgeous we knew. She's gone. And she's, you know, and it's like, we need to get out of this house. And at this point, Kung Fu gets eaten by a light fixture. Or no, by a light fixture.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it looks like one of those pizza joint lights that, you know, like,
The hanging
Yeah,
chandelier
the
lights. Yeah.
and it comes down and it bites her, but she fights her way because they do see, or she does see the after world, like the nether world that this house sends the people to, that you could hear on the phone. And like, she can see like her friends in there and everything. And then, she realizes she needs to destroy like Prof figures out, you got to destroy the picture of the cat of Blanche.
Right. It's in the diary, the aunt's
Yes.
diary.
Yes.
Yeah.
So destroy the picture of and so her feet survive, or her bottom half of her body survives, and Kung Fu's half of Kung Fu, so Kung, ends up destroying the painting.
I think
of
that was
Blanche.
Foot. It was just Foot.
Oh, it was just
Kung
Foot?
was, yeah.
Kung was in
was
the
a-
top half. Yeah, okay, gotcha. I always get those two confused. Anyway, so yeah, Foot ends up kicking the painting to oblivion, which kills the cat in the house, which falls off of Gorgeous's lap, and then everything seems to stop until the cat's painting starts to barf a bunch of blood out and starts filling up the room.
Yeah.
Which then a vase with a mouth on it comes up and grabs Prof, pulls her into the blood, drowning her, and she eventually dissolves into like it's acid. That was a pretty cool effect too. Meanwhile, Mr. Togo has stopped at the watermelon guy's house and is trying to trying to figure out how to get to the house. The watermelon man turns into a skeleton and collapses. So he was never real to begin. He was just reanimated for sending people to the house. And then Mr. Togo starts to freak out about bananas and then turns into a whole bunch of bananas. And then he's just there, and he's just there as bananas in the car when the stepmom pulls up later.
Yes.
Yoko. So yeah, so basically the only one that's left now is fantasy. And Gorgeous shows up dressed in her, like in her gown, in her wedding dress or whatever, and basically just kind of cradles her. And it's like, yeah, you're everything's going to be fine. Everything's going to be great. And I assume at that point, just fantasy has died. Like just from insanity, from Japanese horror movie insanity. I don't know. I don't know what happens to her because it fades to black with like that kind of last embrace of the two of them. Because when we first meet them, they embrace when they parted ways at the end of school. So it's kind of like they're that last embrace of these two friends, but it's not really the two friends anymore.
Well, it's left to your imagination because she's fantasy.
True. So I think she just kind of...
Jason will buy it.
Yeah,
I was just going to say, I buy that.
Yeah, buy that. I'll buy that too. I mean, like in my mind, she just kind of merges into the house. Like she just disappears eventually. Like she has no, I mean, there is no fight to her because she doesn't want to believe, as we saw in the previous scene, when everything was being explained by the pieces of Gorgeous's face. She doesn't want to believe that Gorgeous is not gorgeous anymore.
Sure.
So then the next day comes, and one of the things that was discussed was that Ryoko, the stepmother, or the soon-to-be stepmother, has told Gorgeous's father that, you know what, let me go out to her aunt's house, and I will talk to her alone. This will be my first test as her new mother, to go and talk to her. So just give her some time to blow off some steam, and I'll go and speak to her. So she shows up the next morning, which she parks right next to Mr. Togo's goofy dune buggy, which he's just there just as bananas now. It's just a big pile of bananas. I mean, I don't know. I guess that wouldn't be a terrible way to go. You're loaded with potassium. You're probably all right.
Are you still sentient? I mean, do you have a consciousness? Are you aware of being eaten when somebody desires?
Well, there's nobody left in that town to eat you.
Someone might, or then you're going to.
I'm sure the last hero that was supposed to show up turned into watermelons.
Oh, all right.
Yeah,
I like that.
You buy it?
You sure do.
How much you paying for that?
It'll be a banana stand the next time.
Yeah, I bet so.
Yep.
Hey, you guys remember the cartoon on Nickelodeon, Banana Man?
Barely.
He's that guy now.
Not really.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, Banana Man. Look it up.
Yeah.
Look it up. I think it was on Nickelodeon. I think it played Pinwheel.
Right. Yeah, I think it did.
Yeah. Anyway, Pinwheel was for the little kids.
Yes, it was.
But anyway, so she shows up and she's kind of taking in the beauty of this little house in the middle of this pastoral, picturesque village. And meanwhile, we see Gorgeous, now wearing like a traditional kimono, is like very, I don't know the word I want to use. Like she's acting like a grown up. Like she's not acting like a little kid anymore. She's
a bit precocious, perhaps.
Well, she is kind
confident.
of teasingly, and she is kind of teasingly
and she's
smiling
teasing
at
because
her.
she opens one side of the door to the house and then she slides it, opens it to the other side. She's being very coy. Yeah, and it's like, hey, look at me. I've got this really nice kimono now. It's like, don't I look all grown up and like I'm, like I've matured in this time? Well, it's because she kind of technically has matured because she's not gorgeous anymore. But anyway, so she invites the stepmother in and, it's like they're going to make amends. And it's a really nice little short conversation they have. And much like what the stepmother wanted to do when she first met Gorgeous, she wanted to shake her hand. It's like, let's shake hands. And so Gorgeous extends that and she goes up in flames. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, she eviscerates her, and not before that, or before that, she said, "All of my friends will wake up soon because they're going to be hungry."
Yeah,
so they're all a part of this, whatever this supernatural being house is that will eat the next guests that
That's
arrive.
a good point. That's a good point. Yeah. Are they gonna physically rise, or are they just now part of the Hausborg?
Yeah, I assume they're all part of the Hausborg now. And I think Jeff had said earlier that the aunt could stand up. Well, she was getting weak, having not had anything to eat for a long time.
Yep.
And now that she's getting not virgin necessarily, but it plays like virgin sacrifice almost because they're unmarried girls, right?
Yep.
Is giving her power back.
Yep. And her beauty and her youth.
Right. And yeah, exactly that.
Yeah, I mean, she is basically what she was when her beloved went away and didn't come back.
Right. Yeah. And she just looks like gorgeous, in my opinion.
Well, I mean,
there might not even be a possession there. She just might look like gorgeous.
Well, it could be. Yeah, it absolutely could be because they do say
that's what they say.
Yep, they said that in the flashback.
She looks just like you.
Yeah, everything is kind of telegraphed here for you, except for the exactly how people die is not telegraphed, but what's going to happen to Gorgeous is telegraphed throughout the course of the movie.
It's fairly straightforward as a narrative. It just tells it in the most bonkers way possible.
Right.
And it's really sad because
it is.
Nobody can reconcile their lost love. Nobody can reconcile it. And I don't know. I mean, I'm sure that's the point, but we've all lost love before and had to move on from it. None of these people have been able to, which is, it's sad.
Yeah. I mean, cause that's why it would be interesting to really find out, there are different ways you could take what happened to Fantasy, because you could say that Gorgeous was her love that she lost. And that's why it was kind of left in the air exactly what happened to her. Is she trapped in that house as a part of the house, or is she another kind of representation of what she used to be before she was killed by the house? You know what I mean? You see what I'm saying? It's she is also dealing with the loss of her best friend.
Yeah, I mean, I assume they're all part of the house, but I get what you're saying. You don't really see what happens to Fantasy, but I assume she's enveloped too.
Yeah, I would think so too, because I mean, at the end of the day, it's Gorgeous is not Gorgeous anymore. So it's Fantasy has lost, but that's not going to save her in terms of she is an unmarried woman inside the house that's going to eat her eventually.
Right.
Yeah. And the avatar of the house now looks like Gorgeous, or has possessed Gorgeous, one or the other. Yeah.
It's just a crazy movie.
It is
so crazy.
But I think it's a movie that you can watch multiple times and get multiple takes from.
For sure.
And you are right, Chuck. It is kind of a sad movie that's kind of dressed as this almost lighthearted, silly romp at times. And the attention span, like Jason, you brought up earlier from the interview, it's everybody knows their friends are missing or something's happened to their friends, but they don't stick around long enough until all of them are endangered in the same room. Do they actually put it all together and then act on it?
They're overstimulated, and so everything that happens it immediately grabs their attention completely, and the last thing is forgotten, right?
Yep.
It's a fun movie. I think it's fascinating that Japanese producers wanted to make the Japanese Jaws. That's how this movie.
Well, the piano.
That's how this movie came to be.
I mean, the piano is kind of a sharkish type of character.
They approached the producers approached Obayashi and said, we want to make a movie that will be incredibly successful like Jaws. That's really all they gave him, and that's when he approached his 10-year-old daughter. He said, in all matters of importance, I consult children. So because the adult mind only accepts what they know, the child's mind is open. It's that is awesome. And so he started asking her, it's what would be a really scary thing to see in a movie? and she was standing in front of her mirror. She was brushing her hair. She's like, it would be really scary if my reflection attacked me right now. Right? And they just kept asking her different things. And she was giving him all this stuff that, like, he was tapping into her childlike fear, right? Of things. And then bringing that into a movie and giving it metaphorical weight, right? It's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is cool. And, it's like, yeah, also the adults the adults are running the business. Like, they want to make the money on the movie. So they're not going to have as much imagination as any random kid on the street is going to have.
Yeah. Yeah. He also said that he didn't want to do something like a killer bear or a killer shark or whatever like that. He's like, that's what an adult would jump to, is to do a killer bear movie. And he's like, well, a killer bear movie, killer bear could happen. I want to make something that can't happen.
Yeah.
Which also then gave him license to do all of the creative stuff. The hyper real, surreal stuff, the absurd stuff that is believable in the context of a story so absurd, right?
Right.
That made me think of something. Oh, well, they're like, well, you got to have a bear somewhere. And he's like, he's cooking the ramen noodles.
Yeah, that's probably not far from the truth. That'd be hilarious to know.
Oh, there's
Oh
your
my
killer bear
gosh.
right there. He killed noodles.
He
cooked
killed
them.
those noodles. Yeah. He used his claws to cut the noodles.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this was at least distributed by Toho, if not actually funded by Toho.
Yeah, Toho heavily
this is
involved. It was Toho that came to him, I think.
Yeah.
They
So
produced it,
they're like,
yeah.
well, we're kind of done with this Godzilla guy for a little while. Give us a Jaws. And he's like, how about a house?
Yeah. How about instead of a shark that eats people, I'll give you a house that eats people.
Well, when did Amityville come out? Probably not long before this, right?
After this,
Is after, I think.
Amityville's after. I thought it was 70s.
the movie was 79. The events was
Yeah.
the events were like what 74? Yeah,
74.
okay.
Interesting.
But
I
I
thought
don't know.
Amityville was
79.
76. Yeah, my
Yeah.
bad.
Yeah, and Jaws was what 75, I guess. Yeah,
There's been no shortage of haunted house movies before
True.
House. But
yeah.
the idea that the house is physically eating these people is pretty different in a lot of ways.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh yeah, absolutely. This is. Not to say this again, but it's a very Japanese concept. We don't think about things like that, like the house having an appetite. That's not something that our brains in the West think about the same way.
In our ghost movies, we have something happens where they're led into danger,
right?
and by a combination of a dangerous prop and they're stumbling upon it because of fear or what have you is what does them in, right? Or an object is literally possessed maybe and it falls. It doesn't it doesn't do what the lamp does in this, where it's
Where it grows
it's like
teeth.
latching on, and growing teeth, right?
Yeah.
Or mattresses that grow teeth, right?
Or I would argue that it's about time with the possessed clock is kind of like
Well, yeah, because did you notice what company made that clock?
House.
House made. It said,
Yeah.
yeah. So it's like
But
the house
it-
itself made that clock.
But you were referring to the Amityville movie About Time, right?
Yes.
Which yes,
Uh,
I agree. That was several years later, but yes, absolutely.
Right.
That is a fun movie.
I love it. I love it.
Chuck, did your kids watch this movie with you?
No. And Sarah watched like the last 20 minutes. Maybe she came down for a snack and she was laughing the entire
Probably
time.
so confused too. It's
She was
what
laughing.
is this? Yeah.
She was like, "What?" She
that's
didn't ask
not-
me what it was.
It's not the wrong response. It's totally
that's not
absurd.
an inappropriate.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not an inappropriate response.
That's the other thing that I think it was Ty West that said this, is that what he loves about this movie is that it works on those different levels. It can work for some people as horror. It can work for some people as comedy. It can work for
You
people
have to kind of figure it
as a
out.
tragedy, like a tragic love story. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's whatever it means to you.
I probably have watched it in each of those ways before too. Like I think it's what's your mood, when you're watching it. If you're looking for something kind of deep to really, sink your teeth into, like a grand piano, it's there. There is an element there. If you're looking for like just lighthearted fun and giggle your way through it, it's there.
It is very
which is
fun.
Interesting because House 2, unrelated, is kind of like that too.
Oh, you mean the second story?
Oh yeah, most definitely. Like the first one was played a little more straight, had some comedic moments, but nothing like the second one. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I remember that's one of my earliest memories of seeing that, or not earliest memories, but when it comes to my comic book collecting days, the ad on the back of the Marvel comics for that movie, and then later getting the Marvel comics adaptation.
I got that. I bought that recently because I love it so much. Yeah, I had that too when I was a kid. I lost it, and so I recently rebought it.
One shot. Yep.
Nice.
And I always liked that the corner box image was like the skull or whatever, like in the corner box.
I love the soundtrack to this movie.
This movie? Oh yeah, that's why I wanted to start it with a little bit of a tip of the cap to Go Diego.
Like I love all the pop songs, but I also just love that recurring motif, the piano motif throughout.
And it's got lyrics to it too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
it's very good. My last note from myself personally is I wrote, because this was the mood I was in, is brutally murdering young girls has never been so cheerful.
I kind of, like a little bit earlier before we started recording, I did put on the soundtrack on YouTube. And
I gotta see if there's got to be a vinyl release.
I was about to say, I'm sure you were going to look for that, but
there's got to be one.
Yeah, and Go Diego, which plays the Cherries Are Made for Eating. That's an interesting band because it's kind of half English, half Japanese. It was a Japanese band, but there were always English speaking members to the band.
Oh yeah.
So that's why it sounds like an American pop song, but they were like a psychedelic pop group.
Well, some of the lyrics are in English too.
Well, all of those lyrics for that song is,
Waxworks put it out, and it's out of stock.
Oh, it's going to be expensive.
Wonder if somebody else put it out. Sometimes like licensing moves, but yeah, it's out there.
It's out there somewhere. It's out there like this movie.
Man, they really did it up too. It's so cool. You'll have to take a look at this. It's like a really cool green and yellow splatter vinyl record, and then the artwork is really cool.
Nice. Yeah, I like the Criterion collection. It was just the crazy cat.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's when I bought the Criterion, I think when it came out on Blu-ray in a sale. And I'd heard about it, but I'd never seen it. And that's when I first watched it. So I didn't see this like many, many years ago. Whenever the Blu-ray came out, I bought it in a sale and I watched it and I was like, whoa, this is completely insane. I've probably watched it one other time other than this last watch. Yeah.
The first time I saw it was probably 6-7 years ago on Bizarre TV. The trailer used to play all the time in between movies, or often in between movies. So I was like, that's why it's like I can't think of this movie without thinking of Hausu.
Hausu.
But well, they never say it in Japanese. It's always Hausu in the trailer, and and then it was played on there, and because I remember that look of the patio there at Gorgeous's dad's house. And the imagery of her sitting there in that, I think it's like one of those swing, like, it was like a swinging chair while he's talking to her.
We cannot end this episode without mentioning, if you listen to last week's episode, we talked a little bit about the painting Christina's World. Crazy enough, Christina's World shows up in this movie. It is in a frame, small frame, in Gorgeous's bedroom.
Yeah, that's cool. I mean, I think about that painting a lot just in general. I don't know why, but it does show up in like popular culture, like movies and other places a lot. Like, it's weird. I don't know. Kind of crazy.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't really have any specific thematic comment on it, just that it was there. And
No, it's cool.
I think that's kind of weird.
I mean,
It
the
is
only thing,
thematic.
the only thing that's missing,
but
Yeah.
I mean, at this point, the only thing that's missing is a bottle of J&B.
Yes. Yes. What would be Sapporo, not Sapporo. I guess if it was a beer, it might be. But
Oh yeah, or
I was thinking Suntory, Ichiban, or something.
what is the Japanese whiskey?
Suntory is
Yeah.
they're probably their most popular. Like that's their big brand, right? Suntory.
I think
I don't know
so.
if it's the best, but it's the big brand.
It's the Forsters. It's the
Yeah,
Forsters.
it would be like their makers or something.
yeah, like the beers that come over here, like Ichiban and Sapporo and
Kirin.
and Kirin. Kirin's the other. Kirin's pretty good though.
Yeah, I like all of them.
They're all
honestly.
good. Speaking of, if I can, is there anything else that you guys have to say about this movie?
I don't think so. I like it a whole lot. It's just a fun old dark house type of movie.
Mm-hmm.
Speaking of maybe not as fun old dark house type of movies,
Well, let's just go right next door.
we'll go right next door to where the devil lives.
Yep.
A little
Makes
west,
sense.
a little west to Ty West's House of the Devil.
Yeah, this wasn't
interesting.
planned. This wasn't planned. Like I didn't realize that Ty West was such a big fan of House, because Chuck had already picked this movie out. So wow, cool. More cool symmetry there, Charles.
Yeah. Yeah. Good job on picking out House of the Devil. But, yeah, it's kind of, I mean, you know, it kind of plays into, you know, we're kind of staying on theme here a little bit, because even though witches aren't really what this movie is about, witches are mentioned in House. Whereas,
I mean, that's a witch, man.
For
That's
sure.
a witch.
Witch demon, whatever. Yeah.
Yeah.
They're all in commune.
but definitely House of the Devil will continue that streak, I think.
It will.
So yes, so that is next week. That is October 16th, right? Smack dab in the middle of Spooky Month. You get a little Ty West.
And the episode release is kind of right in the middle, too.
Yep. So right in the middle of the month. And so, yeah, that is next week. Next Wednesday, go to filmseizure.com. That's where you can find where all the episodes post. You can also find where you can go and listen to all the episodes. You can also find all the places on social media to follow us as well. So yeah, that's October 16th, next Wednesday. This upcoming, Monday, on Monster Mondays, I continue my classic monsters done slightly different ways. I have a curious little movie called Dracula's Widow, and it's kind of weird. It's kind of a weird movie. Sylvia Cristal, of all things.
Ooh, interesting.
Yeah.
Crystal, cerveza, crystal.
Crystal. Yeah, you got my ears perked up at Emmanuel.
Yeah. So, yeah, she plays the titular Dracula's widow.
Okay.
But she herself does not get titular in it. For some reason, they decide not to do that with her
Really?
in this movie. Yeah, it's weird.
Damn, that
It's
is
really weird. It's really weird. But anyway, I still find three things I like about it. There's one performance in it that is bonkers. Anyway, so that is on Monday the 14th on Monster Mondays, our little couple of themes here for the spooky times. Speaking of themes, this Friday at my website, bmovieenema.com, October 11th, we'll get to the 450th review of B-Movie Enema. And it's the movie that essentially set the Women in Peril theme for October, because it's got to be I Spit on Your Grave. It's just got to be. It's got to be.
Yeah.
That sounds like a good number 450, doesn't it? Anyway, I stand up pretty strongly for that movie. It's kind of one of those reviews like I did with Showgirls, where it's like 6,500 words or something.
Dang.
About I Spit on Your Grave. So that is happening there. This also this weekend, B-Movie Enema, the series, is nearing the end of the fifth season with Devils of Darkness. So little vampire cult movie. a certain little devil puppet makes his return in that episode as well.
Oh,
for those
nice.
who have watched that show, Devilini has returned. Anyway, so that is so that's what's coming on. So anyway, I'm ready to go walk down the little sidewalk there, right over to the House of the Devil. And until then, I'm Jeff Arbuckle.
I'm Mac Chuck.
I'm Jason Oliver, and you have been listening to Film Seizure.